I found gel in my husband's work bag. What I did next changed everything. I opened my husband's work bag and found a tube of personal lubricant. I didn't say a word. I just secretly replaced it with clear glue. And what happened next forced our neighbors to make an emergency call to the paramedics. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my revenge story from. I sat at the kitchen table, the silence in the house thick as morning fog. A silence that had become a constant, unwelcome guest. The old clock on the wall, a wedding gift from my late mother, ticked with a relentless accusatory rhythm. Each beat a painful reminder of a life I was beginning to suspect was a beautiful, meticulously crafted lie. My husband Robert had just returned from one of his countless business meetings. He looked not merely exhausted but haunted, as if he carried the weight of a secret too heavy to bear. His face was a map of fatigue and guilt, lines etched around his eyes and mouth that had never been there before. He tossed his jacket on the sofa with a weariness that felt performative, loosened his tie as if it were a noose he was desperate to escape, and collapsed onto the bed, the familiar springs groaning under his weight, without even bothering to shower. The faint scent of his expensive cologne hung in the air, but it was mixed with a new alien fragrance, a sweet floral perfume that felt like an intrusion, a brazen confession from a life I didn't know he was living. A few minutes later, the gentle hum of his snoring filled the house, a sound that once brought me comfort, but now felt like a mocking lullaby, a lullaby for a fool. I got up, moving with the quiet, practiced grace of a wife of 35 years, and began to tidy up the mess he'd left in the living room. His jacket, his wallet, his cell phone, his work bag. I needed to organize some documents for tax season, so I went to his bag to get some business receipts. When I opened the main compartment, my hand touched something unexpected, something that shouldn't have been there, a tube, smooth, small, definitely not business-related. I pulled it out and my heart just stopped. Personal lubricating gel, the expensive kind, with dried residue on the cap. Now I need to be honest with you here. Robert and I haven't been intimate in over 2 years. Not since his heart medication started affecting things. We'd talked about it, accepted it, moved on. So why would he have this? My hands were shaking as I put it back exactly where I found it. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it was for something else. Maybe, but deep down, I already knew. I tried to calm myself. Went to the kitchen, made tea, took deep breaths. Told myself I was being paranoid, that there was a perfectly innocent explanation, but the seed of doubt was already planted. That night when Robert came home, I watched his every move. The way he avoided my eyes, how he went straight to the shower, how he checked his phone 3 times during dinner. "How was work today?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, you know, meetings, clients, the usual." He didn't even look up from his plate. The usual. Was it really? Over the next few days, I started paying attention to things that had previously gone unnoticed. Robert leaving earlier, coming home later, always with excuses about clients and meetings. And then came the moment that changed everything. It was a Thursday morning. I was feeling particularly sad, heavy. You know when you feel something's wrong, but you can't put your finger on what it is? I decided to look for my Bible to read some verses, find a little peace. I searched everywhere. My Bible was nowhere to be found. Must have left it in the car, I thought. Then I remembered Robert had one on his nightstand. I picked up his Bible, looking for Psalms, something to calm me. I opened to the bookmark page. He always kept a bookmark in Proverbs, and that's when I saw it. A folded paper, hidden between the pages. A handwritten note. My breath stopped when I recognized the handwriting. It was from my younger sister, Sophia. "My love, thank you for the special gel. Can't wait for our next meeting. I love you more than anything. S." The world collapsed. It wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal with my own sister. The sister I raised after our parents died. The sister I helped build her life. The sister who was at my dinner table every Sunday. I sat on the bed, holding that paper, and cried like I hadn't cried in years. These weren't just tears of sadness. They were tears of anger, of humiliation, of double betrayal, 35 years of marriage, 20 years taking care of my sister like she was my daughter. And they were laughing at me behind my back. But you know what's interesting about pain? It has a way of clearing the mind, of showing exactly what needs to be done. I put the note back exactly where it was, closed the Bible, and started planning. Because if they thought I was going to accept this quietly, they were very wrong. Over the next few days, I transformed into a person I didn't recognize. Observant, calculating, determined to discover the whole truth before acting. First, I needed concrete evidence. The note was devastating, but I needed to know the extent of the betrayal. How long? How often? Where? I started paying attention to Robert's patterns. He always said he had client meetings on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. He always came home in a strangely good mood on those days, always showered immediately. And Sophia, my dear little sister Sophia, married to David for 15 years, 2 beautiful children. She always called on Wednesdays to chat about the week. Now I realized it was to know my schedule when I'd be busy at the salons. What a fool I'd been. I decided to hire a private investigator. I know it sounds dramatic, but I needed photographic evidence, something undeniable. I found James Morrison through a friend who'd gone through a divorce. Serious man, professional, discreet. I explained the situation. Husband possibly cheating with my sister. Mrs. Margaret, he said, in 30 years doing this, I can tell you that family cases are always the most painful. Are you sure you want to know the truth? Absolutely, I replied. I need to know everything. He started following Robert the next Tuesday. I was at the salon trying to maintain normalcy, cutting hair and doing blowouts when my phone rang. Mrs. Margaret, you need to see this. My heart raced. What did you find? They met at her apartment. I have photos of him entering at 2:30 p.m. He's still there. Sophia lived only 10 minutes from my main salon. David was traveling for work. I knew because she'd mentioned it the previous Sunday during family lunch. Keep watching, I said. I need to know everything. At 5 p.m., James called again. He just left. He was there almost 3 hours. 3 hours. At my sister's apartment. While I worked, building the business that supported our family. On Thursday, the same thing. Robert left for meetings, went straight to Sophia's apartment, stayed 3 hours. But James discovered something even worse. Mrs. Margaret, I need to show you something. Can I stop by the salon? He arrived with an envelope of photos and a small digital recorder. I managed to install a directional microphone yesterday. I caught part of their conversation on the apartment balcony. My hands trembled as I took the recorder. Are you sure you want to hear this? I took a deep breath. Play it. Robert's voice, clear as crystal. Margaret is so focused on the salons, she doesn't notice anything. It's perfect. And then my sister's voice laughing. She's always been kind of naive. Remember when we were kids? I could get anything from her. Well, said Robert, now we're going to get much more than candy. Have you gotten her to sign the power of attorney yet? My blood ran cold. Not yet, but I'm working on it. I told her it's to make the salon taxes easier. She trusts me completely. Perfect. Once we have legal control of the businesses, we can get rid of her and keep everything. I stopped the recording. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the device. It wasn't just betrayal, it was conspiracy. They were planning to steal my salons, a lifetime's work, everything I'd built. There's more, James said gently. The photos show this has been going on for at least 6 months. Always the same days. Always at her apartment when her husband travels. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of fake smiles at Sunday lunches. Half a year of, "How are you, sister?" while she slept with my husband and planned to steal my life. What do you want to do? James asked. I looked at the photos. Robert entering Sophia's building, leaving 3 hours later. The two of them on the balcony, embracing, laughing at me. I want you to keep watching, I said, and I want you to find out exactly when they meet again. And then I smiled for the first time in weeks, but it wasn't a happy smile. Then I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve. That night, Robert came home with that same air of someone who'd had a difficult workday. He kissed my forehead, asked about dinner, complained about a complicated client. All lies, all theater. While he showered, I checked his work bag again. The intimate gel was still there, now with even more residue on the cap. They'd used it again. My sister, my own sister. I photographed everything, every piece of evidence, every proof of their betrayal, and then I started planning my revenge. That night, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of tea and began planning the sweetest revenge of my life. You need to understand something about me. I'm not a vengeful person by nature. In 35 years of marriage, I'd never done anything malicious. I'd always been the understanding wife, the caring sister, the woman who solves everyone's problems. But there's a limit to everything, and they had crossed every possible line. First, I needed to protect my businesses. The next morning, I went to my lawyer and canceled any power of attorney Robert might have, changed all the salon system passwords, transferred total control to my name only. Any problems, Margaret? Asked my lawyer, Dr. Peterson. Let's say I'm taking precautions, I replied. Then I started planning the fun part. James had discovered they always met on Tuesdays and Thursdays, always at Sophia's apartment, always when David was traveling. The pattern was predictable, and that would be their downfall. I remembered the intimate gel in Robert's bag, the perfect tool of their own betrayal. I went to 3 different pharmacies in different neighborhoods buying clear craft glue. The kind used for crafts, which has the same consistency as intimate gel, the same color, the same texture, but with one crucial difference. It's glue. Strong glue. Glue that sticks skin to skin. On Monday night, while Robert showered, I entered his office. I opened the work bag, found the gel tube, and carefully replaced all the contents with clear glue. I closed the tube, cleaned any evidence, put everything back exactly as it was. My heart was beating so hard I thought Robert might hear it from the bathroom, but it worked. He didn't suspect anything. On Tuesday morning, Robert left for meetings as always. He kissed my forehead, said he loved me, took his work bag with the special gel inside. I called James. Today's the day. I want you to document everything. Understood. And then we're going to put on a show they'll never forget. At 2 p.m., I got the call I was waiting for. He just entered her building, James said. Perfect, now we wait. I went to the salon closest to Sophia's apartment. I told the girls I had a family emergency and might need to leave quickly. It wasn't a lie. At 3:30 p.m., my phone rang. It wasn't James. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Ma'am, this is 911 dispatch. We received an emergency call from apartment 304 on Palmetto Street. 2 people needing medical assistance. One of them asked us to call this number. My heart almost stopped. It worked. It really worked. What kind of assistance? I asked, trying to sound worried instead of satisfied. Well, it's a delicate situation, Mom. 2 people who got stuck together. We need authorization to use medical solvent. Stuck together. Exactly as I'd planned. My God, I said, with my best worried wife voice. I'm heading there right now. I hung up and smiled. It was time for the final show. I drove to Sophia's building, my heart beating with anticipation. There was an ambulance out front, some curious neighbors on the sidewalk. And then I saw something I hadn't expected. David's car in the garage. He'd come back from his trip early. This was going to be even better than I'd imagined. But before going up, I called James. Are you documenting everything? Every second, Mrs. Margaret. I have cameras positioned. This is going to be epic. I took a deep breath. It was time for the truth. I climbed the building stairs with trembling legs, not from nervousness, but from pure adrenaline. 35 years of marriage were about to end in the most spectacular way possible. On the 3rd floor, I found Sophia's apartment door open. Voices coming from inside. Paramedics. Someone crying, someone screaming. I took a deep breath and entered. The scene was even better than I'd imagined. Robert and Sophia were in the bedroom, covered by a sheet, clearly stuck together in a compromising position. 2 paramedics were trying to separate them with some kind of solvent. Sophia was crying hysterically. Robert looked like he was in total panic, and David was standing in the bedroom doorway with an expression of absolute shock on his face. "Margaret!" Robert saw me and his face went white as paper. "I can explain." "Explain?" My voice came out calmer than I expected. "Explain how you and my sister got stuck together during sex?" The older paramedic looked at me. "Ma'am, are you family?" "I'm his wife," I said, pointing to Robert. "And her sister." I pointed to Sophia. The silence in the room was deafening. David finally found his voice. "Sophia, why?" Sophia tried to speak, but only sobs came out. She was stuck to Robert in a way that made any denial impossible. "How long?" David asked, his voice breaking. I decided to help. I took out my phone and played the recording James had made. Robert's voice filled the room. "Margaret is so focused on the salons, she doesn't notice anything. It's perfect." And then Sophia. "She's always been kind of naive. Remember when we were kids? I could get anything from her." David leaned against the wall as if he'd been punched. But I wasn't finished. "There's more," I said, and continued the recording. "Have you gotten her to sign the power of attorney yet?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it. I told her it's to make the salon taxes easier. She trusts me completely." "Perfect. Once we have legal control of the businesses, we can get rid of her and keep everything." The paramedics stopped working and looked at me with an expression of, "This is getting too personal for us." Robert tried to speak. "Margaret, please, let me explain." "Explain what, Robert? How you and my sister have been having sex for 6 months? How you plan to steal my salons? How you laughed at me at every Sunday lunch?" Sophia finally managed to speak between sobs. "Margaret, we didn't want it to be like this. You didn't want it to be like this?" My voice went up an octave. "You didn't want to get caught stuck together like 2 dogs in heat." The younger paramedic coughed. "Ma'am, we managed to separate them, but they'll need to go to the hospital to completely remove the residue from their skin." "What residue?" Robert asked, confused. I smiled. "Clear glue. I replaced your intimate gel with clear glue." The silence was absolute. You did this on purpose?" Sophia looked at me with horror. "Of course I did it on purpose. Do you think I'm an idiot? That I was going to find out my husband is sleeping with my sister and planning to steal my life and do nothing?" David approached me. "Margaret, how long have you known?" "A week. I hired a detective. I have photos, recordings, everything documented." I showed some of the photos on my phone. Robert entering the building, leaving hours later. The 2 of them on the balcony, embracing. 6 months, I said to David. "They've been doing this for 6 months. Always when you travel, always on Tuesdays and Thursdays." David looked at Sophia with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger, it was disgust. "Sophia, pack your things and get out of my house. Now." "David, please, we can talk. Now!" he shouted, and even the paramedics were startled. Robert tried to get up, still with glue residue on his skin. "Margaret, we can work this out. It doesn't have to be like this." I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Laughing at the whole situation, the absurdity, the poetic justice. Work it out. Robert, you want to work it out? After 35 years of marriage, you think you can work it out? I took off my wedding ring and threw it on the floor. "It's worked out." The paramedics finished their work and started packing their equipment. You both need to go to the hospital, the older one said. There might be skin irritation. Skin irritation, I repeated. How appropriate. While they dressed embarrassedly, I took out my phone and called my lawyer. Dr. Peterson, it's Margaret. I need you to prepare divorce papers. Today. Robert looked at me desperately. Margaret, please. Please what? Please forgive you for sleeping with my sister. Please forgive you for planning to steal my businesses. Please pretend nothing happened. I looked around the room. The scattered clothes, the smell of sex and clear glue, the total humiliation of two people who thought they were smarter than me. No, Robert. Some mistakes are unforgivable, but the show wasn't over yet. While the paramedics prepared Robert and Sophia to go to the hospital, more neighbors started arriving. The news was spreading quickly through the building. What happened? Asked an elderly lady. Two people got stuck together, explained a neighbor. Looks like they used glue instead of, well, you know. The laughter started quietly, then got louder. Robert and Sophia's humiliation was becoming public. James appeared at the door, camera in hand. Mrs. Margaret, I got everything, every second. Perfect, I said. Make sure David gets a copy of everything. David nodded, still in shock. Thank you, Margaret. I had no idea about any of this. I know, I said, putting my hand on his shoulder. We were both deceived, but now we know the truth. When the ambulance finally took Robert and Sophia away, the entire building was talking. The story would spread throughout the neighborhood within hours, and I was fine with that. In the days that followed, the story spread through our community like wildfire. Not because I told it. I didn't need to. Neighbors had seen the ambulance. Paramedics talk. David told his friends. And in a city like Atlanta, where everyone knows everyone, secrets like this don't stay hidden for long. Robert tried to call me dozens of times, sent flowers, showed up at the salon. I didn't want to talk to him. Sophia disappeared. David said she went to her aunt's house in Orlando, that he'd filed for divorce, that the children were confused and hurt. I felt sorry for the children. They weren't to blame for having a mother who didn't know how to keep her legs closed. But I felt zero pity for Sophia. A week after the glue incident, as the neighbors started calling it, I received an unexpected visit at the salon. It was David. He looked different. Thinner, red eyes, unshaven. The man was destroyed. Margaret, can I talk to you? I took him to my office in the back of the salon. How are you? I asked, and I really wanted to know. Destroyed, he said honestly. 15 years of marriage, 2 children, and I had no idea about anything. I served coffee for both of us. David, I'm sorry. I really am. You're sorry? Margaret, you knew for a week and didn't tell me. He was right, and I felt bad about it. You're right. I should have told you. But I was so shocked, so hurt. I just wanted them to pay. And they paid, he said with a bitter smile. The story already reached Sophia's work. She was fired. Apparently having an affair with your brother-in-law and getting caught stuck to him isn't good image for a family consulting company. I couldn't help a small smile. Poetic justice. And Robert? Oh, Robert is having his own problems. Seems some of his clients heard the story. Nobody wants to buy insurance from a man who cheats on his wife with his sister-in-law. I didn't know that. Really? Really? And there's more. Remember that recording where they talk about stealing your salons? I remember. Well, that's conspiracy to commit fraud. My lawyer said you can prosecute them both criminally. Interesting. I hadn't thought of that. David, can I ask you something? Sure. How didn't you know? 6 months is a long time. He sighed. I traveled a lot, trusted her completely. And when I was home, she was normal, loving even. Now I realize it was guilt. And the children? They're with my mother for now. They don't know the details, just that Mommy and Daddy are separating. My heart ached for them. If you need anything, actually, he said, I want to make you a proposal. What kind of proposal? You need an administrative manager for the salons. I need a new job. I have management experience, I'm honest. And after what happened, you can trust that I'll never betray you. I looked at him. David had always been a good man. Hard-working, dedicated father, faithful husband, until he discovered his wife wasn't a faithful wife. Do you have experience with beauty salons? No, but I have experience with people, and with numbers, and with loyalty. I thought for a moment. How about we start part-time? You help me with the administrative part, I teach you about the business. He smiled for the first time since he arrived. Really? Really. Betrayed people need to help each other. And that's how David became my administrative partner. And you know what's funny? He was better at the business than Robert ever was. 2 weeks later, I received another unexpected visit. Robert showed up at the salon on a Thursday afternoon when I was closing. Margaret, please, just 5 minutes. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes. 5 minutes, I agreed. I messed up everything, he began. I know I messed up everything, but it was 35 years, Margaret. That has to be worth something. It was worth something, I said. It was worth 35 years of my life. I can change. We can do couples therapy. I can cut contact with Sophia completely. Robert, you slept with my sister, in her bed, while planning to steal my business. What part of that do you think therapy will fix? The part where I still love you. I looked at him. The man I married at 23. The man who helped me build a life. The man who destroyed everything for 6 months of sex with my sister. Robert, if you loved me, you never would have done this. It was a mistake. 6 months isn't a mistake. 6 months is a choice. A choice you made every day for half a year. He started crying. Margaret, please! No, I said firmly. I'm not going to be the woman who forgives betrayal because the man is crying. I'm not going to be the woman who accepts being second choice. You were never second choice. Yes, I was. For 6 months I was second choice, and that's 6 months too many. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. The divorce papers arrive next week. Sign them, Robert, and let me move on with my life in peace. But the story still had one more twist. The following week, James called me with interesting news. Mrs. Margaret, you're going to want to hear this. Sophia tried to sue you for assault. Assault? I laughed. How so? She claims you intentionally caused physical harm to her by replacing the lubricant with glue. And? Well, her lawyer dropped the case when I showed the evidence of the conspiracy to steal your businesses. Apparently, it's hard to sue someone for defending themselves against a crime. Good to know. But there's more. Robert is trying to get half of the salons in the divorce. That irritated me. He has no right to anything. I built these salons myself. Exactly. And with the evidence we have of the conspiracy, his lawyer is also reconsidering. Nobody wants to represent a man who tried to steal from his wife. Justice was being served. 6 months later, my life was unrecognizable, but in a good way. The divorce was finalized. Robert kept the house. I didn't want to live there anymore anyway. I kept the salons and half of the other assets. Simple justice. David became my official partner. We discovered we worked very well together. He took care of the administrative part. I took care of the creative part. In 6 months, we increased the salon's revenue by 40%. And you know what's most interesting? We started dating. It wasn't planned. It wasn't immediate. But 2 people who went through the same betrayal, who understood each other, who supported each other. Well, sometimes love grows in the most unexpected places. Sophia never returned to Atlanta. I heard she's living in Miami now, working as a receptionist. David told me she tried to get in touch a few times, wanting to see the children, but he doesn't allow it. She made her choice, he said. Now she lives with the consequences. The children are doing well. They call me Aunt Margaret and come to the salons on weekends. They like to see how the business works. The oldest, Sarah, 12 years old, said she wants to have her own salon when she grows up. Robert is struggling. He lost most of his clients, had to sell the house and move to a smaller apartment. I heard he's drinking too much. Part of me feels sorry for him, but only a very small part. Because you need to understand something. Actions have consequences. And when you choose to cheat, choose to lie, choose to conspire against the person who loves you, well, you choose the consequences too. 3 months ago, I received a letter from Sophia. She wanted to talk, explain, ask for forgiveness. I threw the letter in the trash without opening it. Some bridges, when burned, cannot be rebuilt. But you know what I learned from all this, that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can rebuild my life at 58 years old, that I can trust again, love again, be happy again. David and I are planning to get married next year. It'll be a small ceremony, just close family and true friends, the people who stood by my side when everything collapsed. And the salons? They're thriving. We opened a 4th salon last month. I have 15 employees now, all strong women who know the value of honest work. Sometimes clients ask me about the story, about how I discovered the betrayal, about the revenge, about how I managed to move forward. And I always say the same thing. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Robert showed me he was a man capable of cheating on his wife with his sister-in-law and conspiring to steal a lifetime's work. Sophia showed me she was a woman capable of betraying the sister who raised her and took care of her all her life. I believed them and acted accordingly. The clear glue. That was just the beginning. The real revenge was rebuilding my life without them and showing that I didn't need either of them to be happy. Today, when I wake up in the morning, I look in the mirror and see a woman who survived the worst possible betrayal and came out stronger on the other side. I see a woman who doesn't accept being second choice. I see a woman who knows her worth. And you know what else? I like that woman. So, for all of you who are watching and going through something similar, let me tell you something. You're stronger than you think. You deserve more than crumbs of love. You deserve fidelity, respect, honesty. And if you're not getting that, don't be afraid to demand it. Don't be afraid to leave. Don't be afraid to start over. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. And I'm living very, very well. The clear glue story became legend in our community. People still talk about it. Some call me a hero. Others say I went too far. But I know the truth. I did what needed to be done. And if I had to do it all over again, well, maybe I'd use even stronger glue. Hey everyone, if this story touched you in some way, leave a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love knowing where you're tuning in from. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it. Sometimes, a person just needs to know they're not alone, to find the strength to start over. If this story gave you strength, a super thanks helps keep these stories coming to you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next stories. Because you know there's always more drama coming. Until next time, and remember, you deserve true love.